Welcome back to JNS's inaugural conference here in the Waldorf in the heart of Jerusalem. Welcome. Today we have with us Jonathan Conricus, the former IDF spokesperson, senior fellow at FDD, and now co-founder of Bottom Line Media. Welcome, Jonathan.
Shalom, Ariella.
I feel like I've seen you around. Media, you know?
Yes.
Well, welcome. I heard you just gave a talk.
Yes, I participated in a security panel with lots of smart experts, and I learned a thing or two.
Tell me about that.
The bottom line that I think I got from it was that the change is already happening. Change in terms of paradigm of thought and the way that Israel operates in the region, uses force and threatens to use force in order to defend itself. I think that's one of the biggest things that we did wrong and up until October 7, and a lot of that has changed and some of it is changing. My contribution to that conversation was that I think that there's still change that needs to happen with regards to Israel's policy towards Egypt. But a lot of smart people, Richard Kemp, Amir Avivi, and chaired by Dan Diker, so I think the audience got quite a lot of good understandings about the new challenges and what Israel needs to do better. So policy recommendations. I
actually just spoke with Richard Kemp as well all about Egypt and how they've been able to stay off the radar in media. Why do you think that is?
They're getting away with murder. The Egyptians, I think, are peace partners on paper. I think that the peace treaty with Egypt is very important for us to maintain. But I think that at this time, after October 7, there is a need for a complete overhaul of Israel's strategy towards Egypt. I think we have to really assess what Egypt is doing and hold them accountable for their deeds. I think that a lot of people are not aware, or they don't really think about it, but all of the weapons that Hamas and Islamic Jihad had in Gaza before October 7, that they used to butcher Israelis with since, all of those weapons came in through Egypt. And had it not been for Egyptian active support of Hamas throughout the war would have ended a long time ago. And the fact that the Egyptian authorities on October 7 were super clear about the fact that there would be 0 Palestinians getting out from Gaza as the war was starting, and everybody knew that we were going to war after Hamas's attack on Israel. They have upheld this policy, which in my mind is a very cruel policy, very inhumane policy towards the Palestinians. And again, when you think of it, it is the only war zone in the world where civilians have been prevented from escaping the battlefield.
Yes.
And why is that? Because that fits Egypt's, what they want to achieve. It fits Hamas's strategy because it contains the problem inside Gaza, and it really prevents us from achieving a decisive and lasting victory. As long as the Gaza Strip is full with 2 million people who now have nowhere to live, very little food, and completely destroyed infrastructure because of how Hamas used it, then it'll be very difficult to really affect change. And as long as the Egyptians prevent Rafah from opening, and every Palestinian that would want to move out of their free will, no coercion, just people looking for a better future, as long as that is the case, we're looking at a generation of suffering and lots more bad things to happen. And I think Egypt, in that sense, they're getting away with murder.
Yes, they are.
And my issue isn't so much with Egypt, it is with my government. Consecutive governments, consecutive prime ministers, consecutive ministers of defense who are not seeing reality.
What actions should they take to change the situation?
I think that Israel isn't applying enough pressure on Egypt. We are not using the tools that we have at our disposal, not directly Israel, and not indirectly using our friends. And I think that Egypt would be susceptible to a lot of pressure, and I think Egypt could be incentivized to do the right thing. The right thing, by the way, also according to the US.
Yes.
Last time I checked, if a US president presents a plan, then that is something that the US establishment should be promoting. And I'm really concerned that the US president, President Trump, made a very direct, and he repeated that plan many times, and he said, my plan is to evacuate people out of Gaza so that it can be rebuilt and it can we can change
in what it needs to be.
Yeah, and that isn't happening. I don't see the American bureaucracy doing
or
it.
Or next set of plans, exactly.
Exactly, and I see the Egyptians actively operating against the American plan. So it doesn't really make sense. If this is the American president's plan, then why is Egypt undermining it? And if Egypt is undermining it, why isn't there a price to pay to undermine the clear plan of the US president? And again, this is a plan that I think would be brilliant if it turns into reality, and it could be really good for the future. It could bring about prosperity. It could perhaps get rid of Hamas, get rid of extremism in that poor...
Make real change.
Make real change and make a real positive influence. And it's very sad to see that nothing's happened so far, and Egypt is undermining the president's plan.
Well, I look forward to hearing more of your commentary in your Bottom Line Media and where you post it on YouTube, so I look forward to hearing that.
Yep.
In my next question I have for you, as someone who has communicated Israel's military actions to the international community, what are the biggest challenges you face in combating misinformation and bias in the global media coverage of Israel? And I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah, I think I regret current media coverage of Israel. I think it is unprofessional in many Western and American outlets. I think it is plagued with unprofessionalism, lazy reporting, boilerplate answers.
What does lazy reporting mean?
Lazy reporting is using old, beaten, and found to be untrue narratives, repeating them.
Unfactual.
And not really assessing the situation and refusing to look at what's going on with a fresh set of eyes, and basically blaming Israel for everything wrong happening in the Middle East, for all human suffering, and always looking for the angle to hold Israel accountable for what it does, what it doesn't do, and what others do in the region. And I think that's a disservice to consumers of media, it's a disservice to truth, and it's a disservice to Israel. And I think that there is room.
And we've seen multiple accounts of this across mainstream media throughout the war, before the war, etc.
And I think that just as there's a time of reckoning for the state of Israel, its defense establishment, there should be calls for reckoning in international Western media about how they have been covering the Israeli-Gaza war. An example, BBC, they've been in the crosshairs of a lot of attention. They have made multiple transgressions, professional transgressions. They have been forced to offer at least 3 apologies, which is very unusual for them, very rare, but 3 apologies, 3 strikes based on bad reporting, bad use of language, and unfactual...
Yeah, just not checking.
Yeah, not checking. And the last thing, just 2 days ago, a BBC Arabic reporter working for the BBC in Gaza, who posts on his social media and says, we are going to burn Jews just like Hitler did. This is just 2 days ago. And
it goes beyond the pretense of bias. It goes
way beyond that, and I think it is regrettable, and I really would hope, as someone who consumes a lot of media and someone who wants to trust the big international, what some people call legacy media outlets, I want to be able to pick up my phone, scroll, and
know that that's actually
and know that this is true, and that there are professional, unbiased, fair journalists that are creating these news. And currently, that is not the case when it comes to Israel, and I think that's regrettable. And I would hope that international media, the big American outlets, the news agencies, AP, Reuters, AFP, and the New York Times and BBCs of the world would be able to actually live up to their credo.
They have to check their news sources. They have to check their news wires.
They have to do a much better job, not hire former Al Jazeera journalists who are masquerading as journalists amongst their ranks. They shouldn't use Hamas stringers, Hamas activists as stringers in Gaza. They shouldn't take Hamas information at face value and cite it as credible information, and they should be fair and unbiased when it comes to sources of information and treat Israeli information with the same level of legitimacy and veracity as they would treat any other official information from any other country, the US, UK, France, or any other country, which they aren't.
Well, thank you, Jonathan Conricus, for joining us today. On behalf of JNS and Bottom Line Media, we're glad to see you here.
Thank you, Ariella.
Yes, absolutely. See you later as we bring more news for you, more people, more experts. I want to know and you're going to want to know. Stay tuned.